presidential primaries in New Hampshire. This video was shot in 2019 at a moment when not a single person in the country really believed that Joe Biden had any chance to win his party's nomination. So because they gave him no chance, not a lot of people were paying attention when Biden was asked whether he would continue to take donations from the oil and gas industry. Here's how he responded.
Kiddo, I want you to just take a look, okay? You don't have to agree, but I want you to look in my eyes. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate with it, okay?
We're going to end fossil fuel. End fossil fuel? The basis of the entire American economy? How are we going to do that? And why? Biden didn't explain, and again, because no one believed he was actually going to win, no one thought to ask. The assumption then was that Biden was only running for president because he was old and sad and didn't know what else to do with his retirement. It's not like he was going to get anywhere. So Biden kept saying this, not noticed by many. As president, he pledged, quote, no more drilling, including offshore. No ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. Well, then something unexpected happened. Bernie Sanders so terrified the Democratic Party's top donors that they gave the nomination to senile old Joe Biden. And then Biden became president. And then, as president, he immediately started doing exactly what he had promised he would do. Biden stopped issuing new permits for oil and gas leases. He canceled federal drilling permits and pipelines. Then just a month ago, the administration canceled 3 oil and gas leases in Alaska and the Gulf of Mexico, and then eliminated more than 1 million acres of potential drilling sites. Then to cap it off, you may have noticed, Joe Biden imposed an oil embargo on Russia, which is one of the world's biggest energy producers, because democracy or something. So what happened next? Well, gas went to over $5 a gallon. Inflation exploded. India and China got a whole lot more cheap Russian oil to keep their economies humming. And then the ruble got even stronger than it was before the war in Ukraine. So everyone got rich except us. We got poorer. Those are the facts. Now, what would you conclude from those facts? Well, you might start to think that Joe Biden had something to do with rising gas prices because when you restrict the supply of something, when you have less of something, it costs more, like oil, for example. Now, this is a principle known to elite professional economists as supply and demand. Less drilling gives you more expensive gasoline. You might conclude that, but you would be wrong. In fact, if you believe that, you're an idiot. You probably still think Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 presidential election. You're naive, you're credulous, you're a sap. The truth is much more obvious. Gas prices are high right now because Vladimir Putin made them high. How did Putin do that? Simple. From his lair in a torture chamber deep beneath Lubyanka prison in Moscow, surrounded by empty vodka bottles and the severed heads of his enemies, Putin signed an executive order raising the price of unleaded gasoline and diesel fuel in the United States. And also, while he was at it, of cauliflower and meat thins and dimensional lumber and plywood and plumbing parts and fish tacos, as well as a whole bunch of other things you buy. In fact, of everything you buy. Vladimir Putin single-handedly caused inflation and high gas prices. He did this on purpose, just as he got his orange accomplice elected president of the United States 5 years ago. Putin did that. Why did he do it? As if you even needed to ask. Putin did this because he hates our freedoms. That's why. The freedoms that Joe Biden gave us, that Putin wants to take away. As Joe Biden himself wrote in a letter today, scolding the oil companies for not selling more oil, quote, we're living with the economic challenges that Vladimir Putin's actions have created for American families. See? It's that darn Putin again. But Biden's got a plan to fight the Slavic gas crunch. He's going to impose a new tax on energy. That way, gas prices will drop because when you make something cost more, actually it's cheaper to buy. Does that make sense? Joe Kernan may be the one sane person left on CNBC. Here was his assessment of this.
Here's the final 2 lines of the letter. Vladimir Putin's price hike, which price hike are both capitalized, I'm not sure why, but Vladimir Putin's price hike, all caps, are driving up costs for consumers. I appreciate your immediate attention to this issue and your efforts to mitigate the economic challenges that Vladimir Putin's actions have created for American families. So Putin's mentioned it 5 times, I think. There's your last paragraph. Let's see how the oil and gas companies respond.
This is pure demagoguery. It's not going to help the issue. It's getting your eye off the real problems and the real. And this is just on break telling Becky. I lived through the Carter years. Every day I get a stronger sense of deja vu.
Oh, Jimmy Carter, another great Democratic leader undone by the Russians, in his case, Leonid Brezhnev. In 1980, it turns out Jimmy Carter did roughly what Joe Biden wants to do. He imposed an excise tax of 70% on the value of oil sales in excess of $12.80. So what happened next? Well, we know because it was studied. The Congressional Research Service found that that tax had the effect of crippling domestic oil production by between 1.2 and 8%. Our reliance on foreign oil, meanwhile, went up by as much as 13%. And that doesn't really make sense. If the point of the tax was only to prevent, quote, price gouging, how did this happen? Well, in 2018, a paper in the journal Economic Policy answered that question. The journal found that increased taxes on oil have the effect of discouraging oil producers to take risk on oil production, and those risks are actually high. At the Tax Foundation, they found that, quote, energy was the most volatile sector of the stock market in the 2010s, and when the pandemic arrived, more than 100 oil companies went bankrupt, and the major producers significantly rolled back their operations. So those are risky investments, whether you agree with them or not. If you make them even riskier, production will decline even more. That seems like the obvious conclusion. And when production declines, prices get higher. And it seems to be, according to some people, what's happening. The CEO of Chevron, Mike Wirth, whatever you think of Chevron, knows a lot about oil, just predicted that, we're quoting, I personally don't believe there will be a new petroleum refinery ever built in this country again. What we've seen over the last 2 years are shutdowns. We've seen refineries closed. We've seen units come down. We've seen refineries being repurposed to become biorefineries. We can burn food in our cars. And we live in a world where the stated policy of the U.S. government is to reduce demand for the products that refiners produce. So when you don't allow people to produce something, what they once produced becomes scarce and therefore highly expensive. And if you depend on it every day, you're screwed. That's what they're